Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Well, welcome along, everybody, to our latest episode of the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Myself and Rory are joined by Tomás O'Shea and Ciarán Whelan. And Tomás, what a day of football we have to get stuck into. It just really felt like the football championship came alive yesterday. We were waiting long enough for it.
We were, and we were giving out, and we were complaining, we were asking for change, and we also, to be fair, Jacqui, we did say that the latter stages of this championship has a potential, when you have the top teams going at each other, when you have the championship feel, that there would be huge excitement. I still think we probably didn't expect to see what we saw yesterday, Kildare beating Roscommon, Armagh turning over Galway, and in particular, Cork giving a brilliant performance to turn over Mayo, and then you had Westmeath above with Tyrone and John Heston. It was just tight, exciting. The football was good. The quality was there. There was championship atmosphere everywhere. I went to myself up to Portlaoise. I watched Kerry, and even though it was one-sided, it was still, you could see that Kerry are actually, I would feel that there's something in them, that there was a lot of people in Kerry maybe looking at them and saying, yeah, maybe there's a bit of a hangover from last year, but I really think it's spicing up and we're going to get some sprint down the tracks for the last 5 or 6 weeks. It's going to be brilliant, hopefully.
Yeah, I think Kerry and Dublin both feel like they finally entered the championship yesterday as well. Ciarán, let's take them down, kind of break them game by game. It feels to me, maybe look, the two Cork people here, me and Rory, might feel this way, but it did seem to me that Cork-Mayo win was in a lot of ways the result of the day because of the impact it has on the championship, but also the drive that it gives, I suppose, a Cork team who were probably progressing the right way over the last number of weeks, but this is definitely a seismic leap in terms of their journey.
Absolutely, Jacqui, like a massive shot in the arm for Cork, and much maligned Cork, I suppose. Kind of 10 years criticising Cork and wondering about Cork football and what direction it was taking, that there was plenty of talent down there, that the younger success wasn't flowing through to the senior team, many changes in management. And you kind of sensed that it was coming to a certain degree because they were resilient against Kerry, and maybe that performance against Kerry was better from a Cork point of view rather than Kerry being poor. They certainly put it up to Mayo yesterday in terms of, you could definitely see the Kevin Walsh factor. He had them very, very well organised defensively. Mayo were expecting it. There's no doubt about it. Mayo were expecting that, and it was something they'd worked on. They'd struggled against Louth. They struggled again yesterday. Cork turned them over in the first half numerous times. You could see that Mayo were trying to play with width, but they didn't really penetrate the Cork defence at all. And then Cork's running game was excellent on the counter-attack. And I would say, though, that the penalty was probably very soft, and Tommy Conroy comes on and the sticks one in the back of the net, and Mayo go 6 points up, and you're thinking Mayo should close this out. And then the penalty gave Cork just that impetus, that momentum again. And then to take over the last quarter, was what Sherlock done coming off the bench, and they grew in confidence. And what a fantastic win for them. And I think you've got to look at it in both contexts. You've got to look at it from the perspective of a brilliant Cork performance, and then it leaves a lot of question marks over Mayo, and particularly that last 10-15 minutes, or that last 10 minutes when Mayo needed leaders. When the game was going against them, that's the question mark that you would have had against Mayo all year, was when the pressure comes on, do they have people that can stand up? And it was kind of left to Paddy Durcan. He kicked a couple of wides, but he was the only one that was really trying to maybe drive on and get something in that last 10 minutes. And it would be your biggest concern, I'd say, for Mayo going into the rest of the championship. And we know the draw they have now going down to Salthill next week, but just that firepower in their forward line, just looking back this morning, and I think, if you park the Kerry game, which suited the Mayo style of play, I think they got 4 points in play against Galway in the league final, 6 against Roscommon, 1-6 against Cork, and 7 from Louth. That's just not good enough. And the reliance on Ryan O'Donoghue to win frees, Jordan Flynn had to pitch in with 4 points. you know, you'd be worried about that firepower up front. But getting back to Cork, it leaves Cork in a great position. Home draw, Roscommon next week, and Roscommon licking their wounds after yesterday, I'll give them the 11 wides. But that is a great opportunity for Cork now next weekend.
Yeah, look, Rory, I can see you smiling away there. You enjoyed that one.
You've been waiting for this for months,
years. Not months, years. Like, we're going back to like, it's their first victory over a tier 1 team since the famous night in November 2020 Munster final against Kerry. They have been in the wilderness for a long time. They're not out of it yet. They're still a Division 2 team, but to go down there where there was again a paltry Cork support, and that's the one thing that I would absolutely hope, especially given that the hurlers are gone, Jacqui, and I would implore and I would call for Cork supporters to get out. This is a team worth following. Like, they have shown unbelievable grit, unbelievable determination. There's a really good spirit there. I know you picked up on the incident last night involving Rory Maguire, and Colin O'Callaghan was probably equally lucky maybe not to get something more severe than a yellow card, but I was delighted to see that type of stuff, because far too long Cork teams have been way too docile, way too passive, not aggressive enough, and that's been largely a criticisms of them. This team is definitely different. You can see, yes, Tomás is correct and Whelan is correct, the Kevin Walsh print, but what you can absolutely see a lot more is the John Cleary print all across it. They are a far more united bunch. They are definitely not going to go down without a fight, and I think it's a brilliant draw for them next weekend, and I really do hope now that there's a big crowd comes out and gives them the support they deserve.
What about Mayo then, Tomás? Because by virtue of losing that game, they also have a chance at the end of the game to even one more point. If Aidan O'Shea puts that over the bar, they're in a second place and they're at home. Instead, they find themselves having to go to Salt Hill next weekend, as Ciarán says, and you do wonder, the mind boggles with this Mayo team, how on earth they beat Kerry on that opening day of the group season and still find themselves here on the road. They are just the great anomaly every single championship.
Yeah, well, I do think, Jacqui, you talk about, they came back at the start of the year and they had obviously an awful lot of work done, and they hit the ground running, and they had a brilliant National League, and everybody started talking to them about them, how fit, how energetic, how Aidan O'Shea had gone in, how they had mixed up, how they were solid at the back, how they were resting key players at the back and introducing new fellas and mixing with the running game with now a kicking game as well, and there was tweaks made. And throughout all that, and look, it seems it is the old cliche. Whelan touched on it there. Like, they had 4 forwards that didn't score from play yesterday. There was an over-reliance on Ryan O'Donoghue. When teams, and they will, the better teams will. I'm not writing off Mayo, because too many people have written off Mayo, and the next thing they'll answer that, and they have character, whatever else they have character. But it will always be whatever team. The only thing that will suffice in Mayo right now is winning All-Ireland, because these big victories in semi-finals and quarterfinals, this team, there's probably a few of them gone, they'll want to win an All-Ireland. So that's what they're going to be judged on. But I'll argue it, and I've always said it, win an All-Ireland, you're going to have marquee forwards, and that is going to be thrown at them here again. You know, they'll go and they'll lick their wounds. Yesterday morning, it looked like they were going to top the group and have their 2 weeks off, and everything was going hunky-dory. I thought Kevin McStay was very frank yesterday. He basically says, we don't have time to be feeling sorry for ourselves now. We have a job to do, and that's what they're going to have to do it. And by God, they're after getting a tough one, having to head to Galway, because Galway will not be happy with their own performance. Not that they won't be happy. They won't be happy losing to Armagh. They'll want to get back in the horse. It's obviously knockout now. Warwick Joyce has put a team together that don't have a mental block against Mayo. It was the other way around for a couple of years. So it's an unbelievably difficult challenge now for Mayo to lift it, go down there and get a win. But the other thing, just going on the Cork win, which was huge, and which I'd have, despite what people think, I'd have fierce time for what they do down here and not what they put up with, because I sent Dr. Con a short text last night. All I said was, Hurling County me whole. That's all I said to him. And in fairness, he got a kick out of that. Yeah. But I do think the one thing that's constantly been thrown at Cork, and in fairness, Kildare answered it as well yesterday, is that they cannot, they get this, they lift everybody's hopes, they get a big victory. And Rory spoke about the reasons that you could argue, yeah, this is a little bit different. There's a little bit of character, there's a little bit of stuff, there's a little bit of defiance about them. Jack Connor spoke, and everybody thought he was Plum-Mossing everybody by saying Cork are better than people actually think. But the next one, if Cork, I would say Cork have turned a serious corner if they turn Roscommon over next weekend. And if they can do that, I think, yes, they're back. They're in a place where they haven't been for a long, long time. And I don't think, like, you give Cork people something to shout about and they'll follow. They will. So I don't think it would take, if they get a good win here the next day, I guarantee you they'd have a good support going wherever. But then again, lads, and this is the enjoyment, it's going to be ridiculously hard to call that game as well, because to be fair to Roscommon, straight away after the game, David Burke was saying not happy in any way with the way they played yesterday, just did not show up in his eyes. So he'll be looking for a reaction there, which makes, you have knockout football. It's going to be a brilliant, brilliant match. And then you have the Mayo Galway. It's what we've been waiting for, and I think we didn't possibly expect what we got yesterday. But by God, it's going to be some belter next weekend.
And one thing, Jacqui, sorry, Wheelo, I just do think it's important, and I know Peter mentioned it with you last night about Croke Park taking a bow. I wouldn't agree with that at all. I know that yesterday was an incredible day, but we shouldn't forget there's an element of recency bias that can kick in sometimes, and we shouldn't forget how dreary and how lacking the first two rounds were. I think Eamon Fitzmaurice wrote a fantastic column on Saturday, and I think I would still bin these preliminary quarterfinals. And the very easy way of avoiding dead rubbers is the two winners play each other in round two and the two losers play each other in round two, and you would still have gotten what we got yesterday without having a calendar that's already in on top of itself. And we know now there's probably going to be a lot of unhappy people come next weekend when the broadcasting plan is laid out, because again, it's a case of you're trying to, put square pegs into round holes and there isn't enough time. It all comes back to our calendar, our old pal. But I don't necessarily think that just because it was brilliant yesterday shouldn't detract from the first two rounds, which weren't great now, let's be honest.
I think, Rory, I'd agree with you there. I think sometimes in hindsight analysis, it was a fantastic day. Jacqui, it was brilliant. Having the laptop going and watching TV and looking at what's going around the country. And that's what we want in the football championship. It was great excitement, but there's still 12 teams standing this morning. And, yesterday morning, you got to wonder, some of those teams, certainly the likes of Mayo, Galway, went into those games knowing, and Roscommon knowing they were still in the championship.
Yeah.
And I think that does have a small psychological effect, whatever way we wrap it up, that still has a psychological effect on the players. If we had two qualifying yesterday, it would have been some day, because Tyrone, Roscommon and Mayo would have went out. It would have been just incredible. But, there's 12 still standing, and I think people were beginning to vote with their feet. I think the attendance over the weekend were only 6,000-7,000 in a couple of places. So it's brilliant. It was a brilliant day, and we've loads to look forward to. And we've been we've been trying to be positive and hoping. And I think Tomás and myself were discussing this on Saturday. I still think the structure is right. I think we wanted it. It probably just needs a few tweaks. Desi Dolan came out this morning saying, he was concerned about player welfare in terms of the amount of games back to back and stuff like that. It's the first kind of manager maybe to come out. Obviously, I think when you look within the camps, with 3 qualifying, it suits the managers, because it gives a better chance of staying in the championship. You know what I mean? They're going to be all for it, and the players are going to be all for it. So it was a brilliant day, but I don't think we can ignore the last couple of weeks, and it probably will mean that we'll keep this format next year, I think, based on the excitement of yesterday. I think that's one thing that probably will flow through from it.
Yeah.
Teams will probably, Jacqui, they look back, and we're all learning. It's the first year that the format is in. They look at to say, geez, had we targeted a couple of games, that point at Desi Dolan, and we said it there the last night on the show. I think they're getting closer to it. And McGeaney gave a great interview yesterday. He basically said, we have games, we're happy, we're playing away games, but I do think week on week it does have an impact on teams. It would be great kind of, I think you drop the league final, you drop the preliminary quarterfinals, that gives you 2 weekends. And then if the GA, I would think that they could extend the whole championship by 2 weeks just to let it breathe in some way and give teams that 2 weeks. Jack Connor spoke. The ideal championship, I've always said for years and years and years, you'd love as an intercounty footballer type games every 2 weeks. I know that's not perfect or it's not, but I do think we're getting to where we should be.
One week recovery, 1 week prep.
But even on that, Tomás, going, if you look ahead to next week and we're talking about Mayo having to recover 6 days and get their head around it, and you'll probably see the likes of Tommy Conroy starting. But look at Galway. Sean Kelly went off for the series yesterday. He was
in a boot.
Unbelievable. And then Damien Comer didn't start. I don't know what current status is with his injury. So 6 days to recover, that could be monumental in terms of the impact it could have on.
And it's impossible to have 2 weeks between every game, I know. But certain weekends, if a team has gone 2 weeks in a row, there's no way, that they should be going a third week. It is, but it's like, it's amazing. One day and the positivity that's there compared to where it was, like, even like that, just thinking about that Galway game and the freeze, the excitement at the end, and Shane Walsh's and the free just before. I don't think either of them were free, actually. I don't know what the lads think. I don't think either of them were frees at all. But yeah, one, like Sean Kelly was outstanding for Galway, and like, I suppose you'd have to look at Armagh. Armagh were absolutely.
They celebrated it, Tomás, genuinely like they'd won the Ulster title or an All-Ireland final. I haven't seen Geezer that animated in about 10 years, genuinely.
Yeah, and I don't think, look, I know he said that the people were down on him, and I felt there was no comparison to that Armagh team, and he can say what he likes, like, but there was a different. They went after Galway yesterday, and I know there's certain teams you should go after, and there's certain teams. And he said that they have been down the past. They've had really, really tight games, but Armagh went at Galway yesterday, and they were ferocious. They didn't back off. They pushed up higher up the pitch, and they're capable of that. And they played a long ball yesterday, a lot longer than they were playing it, possibly in 1 or 2 games. And I suppose if you dissected it, every single game that this year that they've played, they probably have had the long ball there an awful lot, but they just didn't spark. And yesterday they sparked. And I suppose, who like Armagh have that potential. That was without Rian O'Neill, who's supposed to be their key man in talisman. But that was, like, I suppose he has come on the wrong side of so many close matches, and you could just feel the relief in actually getting over the line, finishing top, having the 2 weeks. And it's in a huge place. There's 90 or above in Armagh, and I think for the first time you could even hear within their own ranks where there might be that small little bit of pressure, but that was a huge win for them. And there wasn't a full house there yesterday. Wherever whatever the team they do get in the quarter final, it's going to be insane, but they look forward to it. But you could see the relief in it, but they deserve that win. They fought hard and they earned it.
Yeah, and when you look at the last 12, Ciarán, 5 of them are Ulster teams. It just shows you again, when we do talk about the formats, they're obviously doing something right there, because all of these teams are going, like Derry, you look at them going so quietly about their business. I know you may say Tyrone got lucky, but you look at the performances of that Armagh team, and like they're clearly battle hardened at this stage of the season by the virtue of what's going on there.
Absolutely, Jacqui, and you can fully understand the relief yesterday, as Tomás touched on it there. They've come out the wrong side of a good few harsh decisions and very, very tight games. And to their credit, they've been very entertaining over the last couple of years, and they've been involved in a lot of quality games. And they have a lot of quality players, like
loads of rows.
Yeah, certainly, like plenty of rows. But like you can see, they're like. I think probably the criticisms that Armagh were taking was more that people had a belief that they were better. They had more quality than they were kind of shown, and they were playing with a little bit more conservatism. Because when you look at their forward line and you look at, like, Stephen Campbell has been excellent for them last couple of years. Rory Grubin, brilliant. They found Conor Turbitt in the corner. Andrew Murnan, edge of the square. Rian O'Neill. They've top quality forwards. And they obviously went about the league this year, setting their stall out and making sure they had a solid defensive structure there. And then they try building it, and they try and play counter-attack kicking football when it's on. Some days it's not on, but I think it's more that people have felt that there's been a little bit more in them. Even in the game against Ciarán, I know the sending off is critical, but they still hung in there to the very end. And I thought at periods during that game that they looked flat. They looked, their confidence, there was still a hangover from the Ulster final. But then the last 10 or 15 minutes, all of a sudden they push up in Tyrone, and only for Morgan made a mistake. They could have nicked it. So I fully understand the relief for them, and they're probably the one team that certainly needs a break, because I think they've probably played more matches than anybody. They were in the preliminary round in Ulster. They've been on the road more than anybody has in the last couple of months. So the week off will give them a chance to regroup. And I'd say it was an extra bonus because they probably anticipated Tyrone were going to win and never thought they might top the group. And that was an added bonus for them to get the week off. So I can understand the elation, and they've brilliant support, and they'll get massive crowds down for that quarter final.
Yeah, look, I think it'll be really fascinating to watch how they go, Rory, and how they continue their journey. What about the teams then who lost at the weekend? Because when you look at the draw, let's say you've got Galway, Mayo, Donegal, Tyrone, Kildare, Monaghan, Cork, Roscommon. Of the teams who lost at the weekend, it's a very quick turnaround, as the lads have outlined there, to just like even listening to Kevin McStay talking about, there's not a lot of time to get back up on the horse and recover on this quickly. How deflating is it for those teams in terms of trying to turn this around in the shortened calendar that you've talked about there?
And are all the teams that lost are all travelling next weekend?
Except for Galway as well. Galway managed to still get a home draw in spite of the fact that they lost. But the other teams, Mayo lost there on the road, Tyrone lost there on the road, Monaghan lost there on the road, and Roscommon lost.
Rory, the geography of it's not too bad though. When you look at the fixtures, Roscommon probably have the
longest journey. Yeah. But I think it's it's going to be a 6-day turnaround for some of them as well, on top of everything else. Lads have to go in and do a week's work, try and recover, try and get their mojo back in some way. And, you're going in probably against a team that's, after getting a massive shot of confidence then on top of all of that. So it does go, there is something to admire in these prelim quarterfinals to a certain extent, in that it shows the value of finishing second as opposed to third. But again, to go back, I wouldn't let that disguise what we probably saw in the first two rounds. I think from all the teams, actually, right throughout the group stages, I just want to give one mention, Jacqui. I think Westmeath were absolutely outstanding.
I totally agree. We were talking about this last night. I was actually saying to the lads on the Sunday game, it's very hard in all of those games, but I was like, can we please just try to actually highlight how good they've been and how close they've come?
Jacqui, look at the group they were in. I mean, they were very, very unlucky the first day up in the athletic grounds where they had to go in, and I think it was only a last-minute goal, really. That robbed them of it.
They should have won that game.
Of a result. They obviously, it got away from them against Galway. I think, did they have a man sent off in around the 50th minute, and then obviously Galway kind of piled it on, and then arguably should have won that match yesterday. I think what Desi Dolan has done is an incredible job, given the fact that they kind of farted about the league. A lot of people thought that they might be one of those teams that would have come out of Division 3 and maybe secured their Sam Maguire Cup status regardless. So they didn't really show any of the form that anybody could have expected. And then when people saw the draw, everyone just assumed that they'd be fodder. And I think, in fairness, they do. I know it might sound patronizing, but I do think they deserve a huge amount of credit. And I think Desi deserves a huge amount of credit. And I hope they build on it now going forward into 24.
Do you know the only problem for them, Rory, is they get no reward for that. So you win the Tailteann Cup, you find yourself in this, but yet they're actually even in a worse position going into next year, because for them to come from Division 3 to get into the championship again next year, they get no chance. So it's actually very hard to show the progress and continue it.
You're spot on. And they don't have the Tailteann Cup as a sort of a safety net competition because they weren't in it this year. as a means by which of getting back into Sam Maguire. So it is, I mean, look, it'll probably mean he'll have to put a huge focus on the league, and maybe he should be doing that anyway and try and improve the quality of matches that they get the year on from that, get up to Division 2. And I think they're, like, to me, they're easily a Division 2 side anyway. You know, they should be up at that level.
Yeah. What about giving credit to some of the other teams then, Tomás, that we looked at? I thought Kildare's performance yesterday against Roscommon was magnificent as well. That was probably that would have been a result. To be fair, you look at the job that Davy Burke has done with Roscommon. Everybody expected Roscommon to beat Kildare in that one. That was a big result.
Yeah, I think we were all like, it is, the crowd is fickle. I don't know what movie that was in. It changes from week to week. Like last weekend, Jacqui, I'd say 90% of people you would talk would give the Sam Maguire going west of the Shannon, right? And I'd say today you asked them the same thing.
Eamon Sweeney is saying Dublin Kerry is home and hosed already there this morning. I see in the
Dr. Con reckons Cork have it. I look at it is difficult. You could argue.
We're getting ahead of ourselves there now.
But like Roscommon, we were talking about Roscommon and the job David Burke had done, and yes, they got rattled by Galway, but everybody expected them to beat Kildare, and we had spoken about, I think, Kildare and Cork. We've spoken about their lack of consistency. Is there enough there to see that Kildare can kick on? I certainly think they've always had the talent, whatever it is. They've always had. It's a football county, and yesterday, when going down the home straight when they were under pressure, and Roscommon can say that they didn't play that well, but it was Kildare who drove it on. I thought Kevin Feely was absolutely outstanding. Yeah. I think, we were all giving out about the mark, and I still give out about it and all that, but to see
I thought Paul Flynn was going to have a heart attack yesterday while we were watching the matches with these 10-meter passes for marks. He was losing his marbles.
Well, I hate the mark in general, right, Jacqui? But I'd have some... I'd accept it some way. Kevin Feely's one, Havern's one, who went down. You're baiting it from well outside the 45. I know Kildare one was on the 45-yard line, but your man has to go up and catch it. And that deserves something, because Canavan did make a good point.
Your brother would have cleaned up, by the way. If he could have had that, I'm telling you, you'd have had a few more Irelands in your pocket. Throw Dara inside there in the square. You'd have cleaned up on it.
Oh, you couldn't throw him in full forward. No, he wasn't that nimble, Jacqui. Catch a ball, all right. But it was a huge win. I think they got great confidence out of it. The big question for them, they don't have a home venue. Newbridge isn't there for them next week. But I mean,
where do they go, Tomás? Where do they go? They went
back to Tullamore, Rory.
Do you think?
Yeah. Well, they certainly should be going out to Kilkenny anyway.
Yeah, when you win a big game, you feel good about it. You feel good about the build-up and everything, and the pitches and the surroundings are all the same. So I'd say, and Tullamore is a lovely surface. I'd say they'd have no issue going there at all. But the players, like, they had put up with a good bit of slack. The management throughout the early part of the season, they were up and down like yo-yos. So that win was absolutely huge for Kildare. It was a win I didn't see coming. But you'd have to give them a chance. Like, they are a team that can either hit really, really hot or cold. Ben McCormick was outstanding for them, but Feely was the guy to kick that score and to bring them there. It was fierce, but Roscommon will be disappointed with it. I think they're the games we said they've done everything in Connacht. They've won Connacht championships. They've taken scalps with Mayo, with Galway, and it's from here on in. It would be a disappointing end for the season for Roscommon if they were to lose to Cork next week, because I do think for that team they need to make the step up into quarter-final, semi-final territory if they are to progress.
I think the great thing about yesterday's game was you could see from the start that obviously it was a must-win game for Kildare. It was feisty on the sideline. There was plenty of variables going on between the various managers. There was some decisions in the game that were probably questionable. Kildare missed the mark. The first black card, like Alex Byrne, like, with all due respect, what a goal! Ball bounces up, hits it on the volley. Well worked goal. He kicks a point and then gets a very harsh black card. And Kildare then had the second black card when Whelan went off. So they had to cope. they lost that period, I think 1-3 to nothing.
But should Roscommon have piled a bit more on in that period, Whelan?
They should have, and they should have had 5 minutes with an extra. And you know, the guys were saying in commentary, Mark McHugh was saying push up, squeeze. They probably didn't do enough damage, but they still got 1-3. They still got back into the game. So Kildare had to deal with that kind of. I felt when Roscommon got back level that it was a real question for Kildare about their character, about their resilience, and about their confidence. And they kind of answered that in the second half, because you had fearful that in that first 10 or 15 minutes, you could see that they had a bit of energy, they had a bit of momentum, they were playing with a bit of belief. They had their best players back on the field as well. They had Feely back, they had Daniel Flynn back, they have good forwards. You know, okay, they're missing Mick O'Grady in the corner, but I thought they showed brilliant resilience in the second half, because they could have easily, the team lacking confidence, they could have, when they went behind, they could have easily kind of folded the tent and Roscommon could have kicked on. But they showed a lot of resilience, and you've always felt there's a performance in Kildare, and I think their biggest challenge now is consistency. The draw has been good to them. Monaghan, Kildare, geez lads, that's a 50-50 game. You can never write Monaghan off, and Kildare inconsistent. Both of them have inconsistencies, and any one of them could come out on top, and they'll be in a quarter final. They both only won one game.
Mad.
I think they met in a Super 8s group game.
It was a good game, I think,
4 years ago, and I think it finished a draw, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So very much 50-50.
The other game we haven't mentioned, Tomás, is Donegal Tyrone. And you look at the turnaround from Donegal. I mean, like, crisis. There was lots of words being used up there. And suddenly they're one game away from being in a quarterfinal as well. You know, it's insane what they've managed to do. And the job that they've done to turn things around there has been remarkable.
Yeah, I think they deserve huge credit. I think early on in the season, it was a lot of stuff going on in the background. There was a lot of anger above there. I don't know, is that sorted or near sorted yet? But that wasn't the issue with the county team. The county team had to go out and perform, and it wasn't happening for them. And there was some terrible displays during the league. You know, I think when you lose a player like Michael Murphy, it's going to have an impact. You know, you had McHugh as well was gone. I think the two of them were possibly the two most important players for the last number of years.
McBrearty got injured.
Yeah, and it's like, I think they turned a corner, and the quality is there. They have certain players that can. We were watching it on Saturday, Whelan, and their long range kicking was outstanding. Their defense was more organized, was structured. They have Patton inside in goal. Tactically, they got it right. But there's a good feeling there. They play that second, you know, and it's something like, there's always a game you might look back and you'd say, they might be looking at Ennis and they would say, yeah, we got a spark in that second half, and something happened there. And since then, they have performed very well. And I don't think they'll be fearful of anybody coming down the tracks there. Gallen is playing very well inside. He was marked well the last day by Monaghan, but I think everybody would have picked Monaghan coming in against Donegal the last day. And that's not the way it is. They just pushed hard. They were aggressive. I think, you know, you'd have to give Monaghan credit for the year that they've had, and they've had some big wins as well, big performances against Derry. But for Donegal to go out and beat them, you know, 4 or 5 points, it was a good. I know that Monaghan kind of got close at the end, missed a couple of chances, could have been a way closer, but Donegal were impressive on the night, yeah, for sure.
Fascinating championship to look forward to next weekend. Galway, Mayo, Donegal, Tyrone, Kildare, Monaghan and Cork, Roscommon. Before we finish off, lads, the Tailteann Cup semi-finals this weekend as well, which, you know, look, as Rory said, they are going to get primetime television on Sunday afternoon, which I'm sure some people will have problems with, given that some of the other games may not be available on terrestrial television. But Croke Park is going to host a double header, and it's going to be a double header between Meath and Antrim and Down and Laois. And Rory, it seems to me this was written in the stars that Andy McEntee was going to come up against his old team, and to, like, from a long way out, you got a sense that this was going to be a story that might just happen.
Yeah, and it adds a level of intrigue into that fixture, which I think will be some way interesting for the neutral observers. The Tailteann Cup, I think, has been completely lost this year, Jacqui. I always felt it didn't need a round robin phase. Certainly didn't need that. It's a kind of a short, sharp shock type tournament. If you were going to try and grasp any sort of attention or gain any kind of profile, it might lift a little bit this weekend. They're not exactly the most appealing of fixtures, let's be perfectly honest. Down versus Laois, I'm not too sure what kind of a crowd is going to go in to watch it. But look, it's a great opportunity, certainly, for the 4 teams to make sure that they can get safe passage into Sam Maguire next year. And I think in a development stage, which Down are, and Laois potentially, Andy McAtee in his first year in charge, I think they will certainly see it like that. I think it would be a big, big kick in the backside from a Colm O'Rourke perspective if he were to go out and lose. So there'd be a bit of pressure attached to that from a Meath perspective. So that might fire some level of public interest, but I'm not entirely sure about it. And I definitely would question the fact that the 2 games are taking precedence on a Sunday. I understand the necessity for second-tier competitions. Absolutely agree with it. But this will definitely be something that will have to be tweaked if they are to persist with this type of calendar going forward.
What do you think, Tomás? Because you've obviously been involved with this competition with the Offaly footballers. And I was listening to some of the comments coming out of Antrim after their victory, and some of their players saying they were just delighted to get the chance to play in Croke Park. First time in 75 years, they'd won 4 championship games on the bounce, and just the positivity coming from them about the opportunity that it presents. That can't be ignored either.
Well, you're playing knockout football, Jacqui, in the summer against teams that you have a chance of winning. And I think there's an acceptance there that they're not good enough in the All-Ireland Senior Championship. They get their chance at it, and Offaly did very well. They took out Meath this year. You have Laois, who have turned their season around. You have Division 4 teams who now are playing well in the Tailteann Cup. So it gives them, they have more than what they had in that Division 4. I think it is a hugely important competition. I think it's vital for the progression that they make. I think if you look at right now, Cavan would have been highly fancied to come out of it this year. They've been turned over by Down. Everybody's now saying that it's a great opportunity for Meath. And I would say that Down will fancy their chances against Meath. And that's not discounting the other teams that are still left in it. But look what it's done for Laois. Had Laois not had the Tailteann Cup, it would have been a disaster of a season for them as well. So the pluses, there are other things happening in the background. Is it fully bought into by all the teams? I do know that certain fellas head off to America, so they'll be down 3 or 4 players. But at the same time, it is brilliant. The other side of it is what Rory was just talking about, a tweak here or there. But I think the general idea of the Tailteann Cup is absolutely brilliant. And it gives you, like, when you see what Westmeath achieve, and we played with Offaly, we played against Westmeath last year, and the strength and conditioning of them, the physicality of them, they were in the group that they were in against 3 of the most physical teams in the country, and every single one of them, they pushed them to the very, very limit. So I do think, there probably is a gap towards the lower end of the teams in Tailteann. But I think it's a very good competition. I think it will get better, but I think as the GA might tweak situations and players buy into that a little bit more to be more successful. And I also just say that I thought it was hilarious last night. One of the performances of the weekend, and we didn't mention it, was Dara Canavan, who was absolutely lightning.
To be fair, Paul Flynn was dying he was dying to mention it, and he just didn't get a chance.
Peter,
that out of his is very harsh on him.
Peter was embarrassed to do it, I think.
One ball, you don't have a guy like that back defending. And we didn't, I suppose, mention Kerry, Jacqui, that much either. And I know it was a one-sided battle, but it is I challenge anybody to pick out a winner right now for the All-Ireland. It's that wide open. And
but you're spot on. Like, I mean, Dara Canavan is up there with Clifford for me, Jacqui. I mean, it's just, he turned Kevin Maguire. He was a good full back now. He just turned him inside out there for 1 score off his left. And you're going, it was so audacious. And you were saying, you've no right to take the shot on. Bang, over the bar. He's an extraordinary talent.
I said to Peter yesterday, we were watching the matches, and obviously it's the 2 lads involved now, which is very difficult to be a father of an inter-county player and then have to sit on the television and talk about them. And I said, do you find it hard? And he said, no, not really. And I was like, okay, right. And then I was like, tell me more, you know? And he said, oh, I just don't talk to them. And I was like, all right, okay. Like, I think it's fascinating. I was like, and then as Tomás says, the first thing he does is turn him over for saying, why weren't you defending better on this lad when the chap scored 10 points and got man of the match?
Small fellas who like physical football are dangerous. Like, he's got all the skill set, but they're the most dangerous fellas I always found as a
I've
defender.
never seen a player that is cut off his dad so much.
Yeah.
Just when you watch him in terms of his behaviors, the way he carries the ball, that low center of gravity, it's just like watching his dad.
It's a clone, like,
yeah. Oh, lads, look, we could talk about them all day long, but we're going to have to leave it there. It's fascinating. Can't wait for the weekend. Thanks so much for being with us, Tomás O'Shea, Ciarán, Whelan. Myself and Rory will be back on Thursday to look ahead to a mammoth weekend. We will chat to you all then.
There's the whistle, it's over.